Listen, ladies, you made the rules, and now you have to live by them. In this story, men overrun Grace Hopper Women in Tech Conference by registering as non-binary, and you have no room to complain. But sure enough, they are. You know, Matt Walsh had a good take on this, saying all of a sudden a bunch of women are now deciding that the word woman actually means something. I'll give you the story in the quick version, and then we'll read through this. There's a tech event to recruit women in tech, and a bunch of dudes signed up as non-binary and were desperately trying to give out their resumes and get jobs and get recruited. The funny thing about this is it was not a troll. It was not a protest. It was an organic incident. Basically, a bunch of guys who need jobs were like, if the only thing that I can do to get a leg up in this market is claim to be non-binary, I'll do it. Now, of course, this phenomenon does result in more people claiming to be non-binary, which will go into the stats, and then you'll get weird laws passed because Democrats will believe it. But it doesn't matter. This is an emergent phenomenon. There's a young man. He says, you have to succeed by any means necessary. They need a job. They don't want to be homeless. What do they see? They go to a job fair. They say, sorry, we're not hiring you. Sorry, we're not hiring you. So what do? A women's conference pops up, tons of jobs available, and they say, look, man, I need work. I'll just say non-binary and we're good. And the funny thing about this is the people at the conference start insulting these men and claiming that they've never ever before said they were non-binary. Why all of a sudden now? You don't need to. Your rules. I remember I watched this video where it was a guy with a beard. I'm not a trans person, literally just a guy with a beard. And he was like, I identify as a woman now. Because what does it mean to be a woman? He had like an umbrella and he's like acting, flamboyant or whatever. But he was clearly just a guy with a beard. Again, I'm not talking about a trans person. I'm saying like just a regular looking guy. And there were people celebrating it, saying like, what does it mean to be a woman? They were totally on board with this when it was a spectacle on social media advancing their cause. But now that cisgendered males are masquerading as non-binary, the rules must change again. And women are losing their minds. Well, reaping meets sowing. Here's the story from Outkick. Men overrun event. They write, when you create a stupid system, don't be surprised when people exploit it. And that's exactly what happened over the weekend when a conference for women in tech was swamped by men who registered under the guise of non-binary. Yeah, you can argue that, but based on their rules, they're just non-binary. I'm sorry, you don't get, I understand why the right would argue they're not really non-binary, but my view on this is a bunch of non-binary people signed up. Those are their rules. What makes them binary? Did they say they were non-binary? That's all you have to do, right? The Grace Hopper Celebration is an annual conference and career fair designed to bring the research and career interests of women in computing to the forefront. But this year, droves of men descended on the Orlando event with resumes in hand, and some reportedly even cut lines and shoved women out of the way to submit those resumes to potential employers. There's video of this. I love it so much. Watching a bunch of dudes who did not plan this, all shoving women out of the way and waving their resumes at people. These are the rules you wanted. You want males in female sports? What was that? When they were like, no one's going to pretend to be trans to get an advantage. Are you now accusing these non-binary individuals of lying to gain an advantage? Okay. Well, sure. You tell me, I guess. What's that? They are? Well, then let's go look back at all of the women's sporting events and see if any of these people were just trying to get an advantage. Huh? Uh-oh. You can't have it both ways. I'm sorry. They go on to say female attendees expressed their frustration on social media. These men are acting like zoo animals, sprinting to the booths and physically hurting some of the attendees. But you allowed them to come. You said non-binary people are allowed, and in order to be non-binary, you need only claim you are. So a bunch of guys were like, I'll do whatever I have to do to get a job. Congratulations, these are your rules. No one did anything wrong. A product designer named Lily Lee said that men didn't attend the panels and seminars. Rather, they bolted straight for the job fair. In her TikTok video, she read comments from women who claimed they were bothered, harassed, and even hit on by some of the male participants. Well, non-binary doesn't mean that you don't like women. This is a space for women in tech. Another Grace Hopper attendee said, this is one of those few limited resources that isn't for you. It's for us. Yes, but you allow non-binary people. Come on. What game you playing? Chaos was the word of the day, wrote a woman named Preeti Ladwa. Many men attending as non-allies overstepped boundaries. We witnessed inappropriate comments, breaches of personal space, and a sheer lack of decorum. Don't know, don't care. Anita B., the nonprofit that runs the conference, said on LinkedIn, there was an increase in participation of self-identifying males at this year's event. The nonprofit noted it cannot ban men from attending because of federal non-discrimination protections. Sorry, guys. It got so bad, though. The organization's chief impact officer stood up on the conference to explain that some registrants had lied about their gender identity and men were now taking up space and time with recruiters that should go to women. All of those are limited resources to which you have no right. Full stop. The organization has just violated the Civil Rights Act. You cannot go on stage and say, no men. We can't ban you, but that's not for you. Okay. The Civil Rights Act, multiple titles, talk about what you can or can't do in terms of discrimination, and sex, gender identity, gender, they're all protected. Now imagine, I know what the feminists and the left are going to say, but just imagine this because it's equal under the law. Someone went up on stage and chastised black people for showing up when the space should be for white people. Yes, there would be outrage, but the Civil Rights Act covers that. You cannot do that. We're forced to let you be here, but this is not for you. You can't do that. Sorry, you can't do that. That's what they did to men. These are the rules you asked for. Bo Young Lee, Anita B's advisory president, posted a video on LinkedIn on Friday in response to the criticism. She said the event had always felt like a safe and loving and embracing place. This year, I must admit, it didn't feel this way. And I know that many of you felt the same. Many of you are feeling unsafe physically and psychologically, and you're feeling unheard. We tried to create a safe space, and this week we saw the outside world creep in. This makes me angry and it makes me sad, but mostly it makes me want to fight. Yeah, those are quite literally fighting words. Wow. She made this video where, I love this idea that, I'll put it this way. I am not saying that all of these people who want a women-only event are guilty of being feminists and far leftists, because I believe it is fine to have women's spaces. But it is typically these people who create these policies and allow, say, non-binary, that are advocating for these policies and now all of a sudden are upset about it. This is not, it does not appear to be a women's event run by conservative women who would have just kicked the men out. I really do think so. I think if you were going to see conservatives holding an event and a guy showed up and said non-binary, they'd be like, sorry, dude. And I know that the argument is over like federal law and stuff like that. But for the most part, this is likely relatively woke. Yeah. And, maybe not. But this is what the woke left is creating. There's not going to be a women's recruiting drive. So as I've said time and time again, the left hates feminism and is destroying it. And now people recognize that's where we're going to end up. OnlyFans especially. All right, here we go. They say, it is a shame what happened at Grace Hopper, but when you create a system that allows women to be marginalized under the banner of love and inclusivity, this is what happens. And it's interesting that a group of tech nerds motivated by numbers and facts is even entertaining the charade that men can be women. Hopefully the organizers will take this lesson and make sure next year's women conference is open only to women. A wild concept, I know. This is written by Amber Harding, a woman no less, right? Here's the issue. You create an event and you say non-binary people are welcome, and you say to be non-binary, you need only assert it. What do you think is going to happen? You absolutely will get this. Because it's about numbers. It's not about ideology. It's not about what you want to happen. It's about numbers. How many people exist? How many people are willing to exploit? How many people will? Let's say, they do this annual event and you've got 300 million people in the U.S. Let's say you got 100 million working males eligible for work, or, maybe let's say 80. I don't know. I don't know what the number of working age males is. It might be 100, 150 million, actually. Well, I don't want to say that because there's young people. So the number here, let's just say 80 million. Let's say 79 million are like, I would never go to a women's event and claim to be non-binary. Let's say there's a tiny minority of people, simply 10,000, who absolutely would attend any event and claim to be any identity. Now you get it. Okay, now you're going to see your event overrun by people who are willing to claim to be non-binary if it gives them an advantage. And you know what the reality is? The guys who are willing to do this will get the advantage. They're more likely to get the job. Why? A guy who won't attend won't be hired. And in fact, I'm sure a bunch of these companies don't care. A guy walks up and says, yo, I'm non-binary and I'm a full stack developer. And they're like, works for me, fills our quota in California, you're hired. A woman comes up to them and says, we want to be hired by your company. And they go, I got to be honest. Female, it checks a box. Non-binary, queer, that checks more boxes. We'll take that. We can hire one person and then put in our annual report that X% of our employees are part of these groups. Not you, ladies. So these are the rules you want. These are the rules you get. I ain't complaining about it. I just won't be part of these events. I don't care about these companies. We're going to build our own parallel economy, and we're going to watch and mock them as they destroy their own organizations and then complain about it. That's your problem, guys. I'll leave it there. Next segment is coming up tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.